Hi there, thanks for watching this video. I just want to make a quick video in case you're having an issue with the virtual environment wrapper and you're kind of getting like this weird error. So I'll just show you the error real quick. So this is actually in Atom Text Editor, but this is just a terminal window inside Atom Text Editor. And you see I'm just getting this thing basically says at load, like before I've even tried to type a command or anything, it says, no module named virtual environment wrapper. There is a problem running the initialization hooks. If Python cannot import the module, etc., check that the virtual wrapper has been installed for this version of Python and that the path is set properly. So what I have installed on this is I have a few different versions of Python, but basically the system default is actually Anaconda Python. I think because this is an Atom, it wants to use like basically the core install of Python that came with Mac OS X. So this is actually a pretty easy fix. And when you go over to read the documentation, basically what it says is that it's going to basically look for the version of Python that it was installed with. So my version of virtual environment wrapper was installed with basically the Anaconda version, which means that it's going to be like inside the Anaconda folder with Python and all the other packages that come with Anaconda. But when over here in this Atom Text Editor terminal, basically it's trying to use the system Python to use virtual environment wrapper. And since virtual environment wrapper.sh isn't installed in that directory it's given me right here, this user/binary/Python, it's creating an issue, and that's why I'm getting this error message. So basically, this isn't too hard. You basically just have to do what this says, but like so many things, this requires like some prerequisites. So basically, you can go, and I included these links, but basically you can go and read this, like what is the path on a Mac or Unix system. And basically, path is basically just like an environment variable that your operating system accesses, and that tells it when it opens up your Mac OS X terminal, and that bash shell, which is like really when you're entering commands into the terminal, you're really using bash. It basically goes and looks at that variable and basically says like, oh, where are the locations for commands that I should be able to process? So that's what the computer is doing. So you can read all about that. This is a really good explanation. I recommend reading this whole thread. So basically what you need to do is you need to figure out which installation of Python is your virtual environment wrapper using, and two, then you need to go and basically like do a little bit of commands on the terminal to find out the locations of some files, and then you need to put that all together based on this line right here, these variables, and then kind of just basically put it in your bash system config file, or your bash system config file. So anyway, you can read this. If you go here, this is basically going to tell you like what are the startup files. And I included this link too. So these are the files basically that when you open up the terminal and the bash shell is invoked, basically it goes and it looks at these files to look like, oh, what are the files that are going to have like commands that I can process. So you can go and basically the reason I included this is because yours might be a little different. So you might have to dig through each of these files, and I'll show you how to do that in just a sec. Other than that, it's not really too difficult. So I think the first thing we'll do is we'll open up another terminal window here, and I'll just bring this one here. So the first thing to do is basically just to see what is your virtual environment wrapper, like where is it installed basically. So we would just do which. Okay, and then that gives us back this location right here. So that basically means that, okay, so this is installed with my, it's basically installed with my Anaconda 3 installation. So you can see it's basically a bin, it's a binary, so it's executable, not executable, but it's in the binary folder. Actually, I guess it isn't executable, excuse me. But so it's basically in this binary folder. So you'll see what happens when I type in which Python. Again, it's just telling me like the location. It's saying Anaconda 3. So basically what that means is that you just kind of need to get everything set up that way that in your bash config file, when it loads through and it goes through all those scripts, it basically virtual environment wrapper, all the variables are set for that correctly in the path environment. So I know now that basically my virtual environment wrapper is installed inside my Anaconda installation. I've confirmed what my Anaconda installation, and if you want, you can actually go in here. You can just cd into this folder, and you can confirm that the virtual environment wrapper.sh is actually in there. And cd just means change directory. Oops, my bad. Let's do this. Okay, and then we'll do. So we'll cd into the. Let's do this again. So that was my mistake. So we'll just cd into all the binaries, and we're going to hit ls to list them all. And then you can see we've got virtual environment wrapper.sh. So again, basically what that means is that this program we want to use, virtual environment wrapper.sh, basically it's installed as part of our Anaconda package. So that means that basically we need to keep track of what these locations are, because we're going to set these locations basically. And if you go back to the docs over here, it basically says like, hey, you need to tell virtual environment wrapper, you need to tell the bash, like the bash shell terminal, like, hey, this is the Python version to use. That Python version should be basically in the same level directory as where the virtual environment wrapper was installed. So this is saying which Python should we use, which virtual environment, the original program that is being wrapped, and then to where to actually like source the virtual environment wrapper itself. So we actually have 2 out of 3 of these now, right? Because we know where the Python binary is, right? Because we did this. So we did basically, so we said, which, like where is this installed basically is what this command means. And this tells us, oh, it's with Anaconda 3. We know because we installed Anaconda 3 that our Python is going to be in this same folder. And then we just did, what's our system Python? It tells us right there. And then when we actually cd into this file here, into this folder, basically the Anaconda 3 binaries, it shows us that basically we have Python installed right here, and then we have a virtual environment wrapper installed down here. Okay, so I mean that's 2 out of 3, right? And then the last one that this code basically asks you about is just basically what's the location of the original virtual environment. The virtual environment wrapper, or that's this one here. So where your Python is, where virtual environment is, and then where your virtual environment wrapper is. So to find out basically where your virtual environment is, you just do the same command. You're just doing which virtual environment env. So we'll do this. It would just go. Okay, so that's also installed. So basically, you can see that because I'm using the Anaconda 3 Python installation as basically my default system default, everything is installed in there. And so that's why we have to basically use those file locations, kind of add, prefix it with some code, and then update our bash shell script configuration. And you could actually see this right here. So this says this is in this folder. This is this folder right here. So we could actually find it in here. Sure, so it's right there. So our virtual environment is in here. Our virtual environment wrapper is in here. And then our Python is up here. And that makes sense, right? Because they need to be basically, in this case, they need to be in the same level folder in order for this all to work. But for whatever reason, in my Atom text editor terminal, it's trying to use this one. But if we were to cd into this one, we're not going to see this virtual environment wrapper. So that's kind of confusing. It's confusing like the executable. Okay, so what we want to do now is we basically have all 3 of these locations. I'm just going to get them again real quick so you can just see it in sequence. So we'll just say real quick, which virtual environment wrapper.sh. which virtual environment, and then which Python. So again, this works for me because I'm on Anaconda, and that's really who this video is for. But I guess if you're doing this for yourself, you could start with which virtual environment wrapper, and then you can basically work backwards and see, well, where is this located? Do I know my location of the Python that virtual environment wrapper was installed with? Do I know the location of where my virtual environment program was installed with which Python? So basically, again, they all just kind of need to be on the same level folder directory. Okay, so we have these three right here, basically. So that's basically all we need. So we just need to go over here. We're going to copy and paste this code here and kind of get our code ready. And then I'm just going to open up a quick and dirty text file. Okay, so this is basically saying, again, so where's your Python located at? We know that from right here, right? So from which Python? So we'll just copy and paste that. Okay, and then, so this is saying, where is the virtual environment program located? Well, we know that from right here. So we'll just get that right there. And then where is the virtual environment wrapper located? Okay, well, we know that from this command, and that's right here. And again, you can kind of see they're all at basically the same place, which is like the users directory, the user, Anaconda 3, the binary folder, and then this is like basically where all they are. Okay, so the next step is, where do we actually enter this stuff, right? Okay, so that's where you want to basically go over to this bash reference, and you can basically like dig through these files, and I'll show you how to do that real quick, but we'll just copy and paste these so we have these. And again, you can read this. It's pretty, it's always interesting stuff. And if you have questions about bash or whatever, I recommend this website. This is the manual as far as I understand it. So Stack Exchange and stuff is great, but a lot of times you'll just end up here anyway. So you can choose how you want to kind of play that. Okay. So basically what you're doing at this point is you just want to take this text right here, and you're just going to copy this, and then you're going to put it into one of these files. So how do you put those, how do you get this text in those files? Basically what you're going to do is you're going to invoke your administrator privileges, and then you're going to use the Nano text editor, which is just like a built-in text editor that you can use to like kind of do like quick and dirty text edits for files inside like the Mac OS X terminal. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and we'll just we'll go to the top level directory, and that's all this tilde means. Just go to like the rootmost directory or the topmost directory, and then we're basically just going to do sudo, which is going to ask for a password. That'll give us administrator privileges. We'll use Nano. Nano is going to open up the file, and then we're just going to see which file we need to add this in. So I already know that my config file is actually bash profile, but yours could be I think in any three of these. I would actually just do these three here and kind of see what you get, and that'll kind of give you an idea basically. But typically you're going to look for the one that has the Anaconda information in there. So what we'll do is we'll start with this one. So we'll just go sudo. So that's for admin privileges. Nano, which is the name of the editor. And then we'll just put bash profile. So it's going to ask me for my password. I'm going to enter that. Okay, and then you can see that this says added by Anaconda, blah, blah, blah. And I had just left this little line here. I think I had been messing around with this a while ago. I never came back to fix it. But so this line here is wrong. But what you want to focus on is just when you pop in here, you should basically see something that the Anaconda installer has already put in here. So basically what you want to do is just want to delete this. And yeah, Nano editor, not my forte, so I'm sure there's lots of shortcuts I'm not using here. But okay, so you're just going to delete that bad boy. Come over here, copy that, and we're just going to paste it. And that should pretty much be it. So we're just going to hit Control X. Save. It's going to ask you to save. So hit Y, and then it says file name to write to, so just hit enter. Okay, cool. So we'll just go ahead, we'll go back over here and basically see like if we broke something, right? So we'll just close this, we'll open up a new terminal window. And I never actually had the issue, or it used to pop up on this terminal, but then it stopped. So who knows why that is? But at least on the Atom text editor, it was still giving me that issue. So we'll just close this one, and then we'll open a new terminal. Let's see if that error goes away. Okay, cool. So that error went away, and then we'll just type in the command just to get like some, like basic info. Okay, cool. So it looks like everything's working. Looks like we also got rid of that error. So that's pretty much it, is you just have to basically find out what are the file locations of your virtual environment wrapper, what's the location of your virtual environment program, and what's the location of the Python. And you're basically, if you start with your virtual environment wrapper, you should be able to find out which version of Python, and then you can find out also which version of virtual environment wrapper. So it's really just about file locations, copying this code basically from the installation docs, and then just basically doing what's called a site-wide configuration, which basically means you just edit the startup files for your Mac OS X bash shell, and then just adding that line in there like we did. Close out your terminal and open a new one, and hopefully that works for you. And I hope this has been a help to you guys. Thanks for watching.